He was rejected broke and couldn't speak a word of English. This is the true story of how he went from zero to a confident English speaker, earning a $5,000 month salary and buying his dream car. If you want to change your life with English, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. You know that fear did not come from nowhere. It came from one specific day. It came from one very cold morning. It was the day he was rejected, the day he lost all his confidence. It was the day that broke him, but it was also the day that started his incredible journey. So please sit back. Put away any distractions and give me your full attention. Not because I am a teacher, but because the person in this story, Ryan, is just like you. It was Monday, January 14th, 2019. The air outside was colder than usual in New Jersey. Ryan lived in a small apartment in a town called East Orange. He was on the third floor of a building that always smelled a little like old newspapers and burnt toast. His room was very simple. There was a single bed pushed against the corner wall, a broken white desk that his neighbor had given him, and a tall metal lamp that flickered every time he switched it on. That morning, he woke up very early, around 5:30 a.m. His interview was at 9:00 a.m., so he didn't need that much time to get ready. But he couldn't sleep the entire night. He was too nervous. He had an interview at a company called Brightline Communications. It was a small customer support firm located in Newark. They handled tech support for online shopping websites. It was not a glamorous job, but for Ryan it was everything. He had been unemployed for 3 long months and his savings were almost gone. He had only $48.13 left. His rent was due in 12 days. If he didn't get this job, he didn't know what he was going to do. The job itself paid $14.50 an hour for 40 hours a week. It was just enough money to survive. He had applied online and received an email for an interview. And to be honest, that moment felt like winning the lottery for him. He spent the next 2 days preparing for the interview, but he prepared in all the wrong ways. He watched random videos, copying phrases he didn't really understand. He repeated lines like a robot without any feeling. The truth was, he didn't even know how to introduce himself properly. That cold morning, he shaved his face using cold water because his apartment hadn't had hot water for 2 days. He wore a navy blue shirt that he had ironed 5 times just to make sure it looked professional. It felt a little tight around his neck, but he buttoned it all the way to the top anyway. He didn't have any dress pants, so he wore his only pair of black jeans. He cleaned his old sneakers with wet wipes to make them look better. He wanted to look sharp and professional, but he knew deep down that no clothes could hide the fact that he did not feel confident at all. His fingers were shaking when he tried to tie his belt. He kept telling himself, "Just smile, just speak clearly, just be polite." But inside, he felt like he was falling apart. He left the apartment at 7:20 in the morning. He decided to walk to the interview, which was about 45 minutes away. He could have taken the bus for $1.60, but he didn't want to risk being late. As he walked in the cold air, he kept repeating his introduction in his head. "Good morning, sir. My name is Ryan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I am a hard worker, a quick learner, and I... He stopped walking. He forgot the line. He stood there on the sidewalk with his mouth open and his brain completely blank. A man walking his dog passed by and gave him a strange look. Ryan smiled awkwardly and started walking again, but he could feel the fear building up inside his chest. He passed by a Starbucks and saw 2 young men inside talking loudly in English. Their sentences were so fast, so natural. He caught a few words: weekend, Netflix, deadline, and he suddenly felt like he didn't belong in this country. How do they speak like that? He thought to himself. How do they always know what to say next? It felt like they were part of a special club, a club that he could never join. He reached Brightline Communications at 8:10 a.m. way too early. The office was on the 5th floor of a gray building. It had big glass doors and a silver elevator that smelled like cheap perfume. He decided to wait in the hallway outside the office. He sat on a bench and pretended to check his phone, even though he had no internet connection. He looked around. 2 other candidates were also waiting. Both of them were wearing proper suits and shiny polished shoes. One of them even had a brown leather folder for his papers. Ryan started to feel smaller and smaller, like he had walked into the wrong room. He felt like maybe he should just get up and leave. At exactly 9:00 a.m., a lady with bright red lipstick and a clipboard came out of the office. She called out, "Ryan?" He stood up too quickly and almost dropped his phone. "Yes, I'm here," he managed to say. She smiled a professional smile and guided him into a room. The room was small. There was one glass table and 2 men sitting across from him. One of them wore glasses and had a very deep voice. He looked at Ryan and said, "Hi, Ryan. Tell me about yourself." And that was the moment. That was the exact second when everything he had prepared, all the lines he had practiced, just disappeared from his mind. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He tried again. I'm named Ryan. I very hard work. Good job. You company I like." Sucked. He could hear his own voice, and he knew he was failing. His heart started pounding in his chest. He could feel his ears getting hot. The man with the glasses nodded slowly. Then he asked, "What experience do you have with customer support?" Ryan knew he could not answer that question. Not in English. He tried to say anything, but all he could manage to say was, "Yes, sir. I learning fast. I phone call can do." He didn't know where to look. He didn't know where to hide. The room felt like a prison. The air felt heavy and thick. His own voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. The interview lasted only 3 minutes. The man closed Ryan's resume, smiled politely, and said, "Thanks for coming. Ryan, we'll contact you." Ryan knew what that meant. It meant no. He walked out of the office with his head down. He didn't even take the elevator. He walked down all 5 floors of stairs without saying a single word to anyone. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just walked block after block. He didn't even know where he was going. He ended up in a small park near a place called Branch Brook. He sat on a cold wooden bench for almost an hour. He kept replaying the moment in his head. His broken sentences, their confused looks, the long, uncomfortable silence. He hated himself. He hated his voice. He hated the fact that he had let this happen to him again. He had applied to 5 jobs in the past. All of them had rejected him. All of them because he couldn't speak English. And now even this small job, this job he needed so badly, was gone. He looked around the park. People were walking their dogs. Children were laughing on the playground. Everything was moving. Everything had sound. And yet he felt completely frozen, like time had stopped just for him. That day he went home and didn't speak to anyone. He skipped dinner. He turned off his phone. He just lay on his bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, repeating one question in his mind again and again. Is this going to be my life? That night he didn't eat. He didn't speak. He didn't even touch his phone. He lay on that single bed inside his cold apartment, still wearing the same tight navy blue shirt from the interview. His belt was digging into his waist. His back was aching. His throat was dry, and his mind felt completely broken. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had nothing. No job, no money, no skills, and no self-respect. All he had was a cheap phone with no data, a broken desk with 3 books he had never read, and an invisible wall between him and the rest of the world. That wall was the English language, and as he stared at the ceiling in the quiet darkness, something inside him snapped. A thought came into his head. It was like a whisper so soft he almost ignored it. No one is coming to save you. He sat up in his bed. His room was dark except for the pale light from the street lamp outside his window. He stared at the shadows on the wall, and he said out loud in his broken English, "If I don't fix this, I will die this way." That night, January 14th, 2019, Ryan made a promise. It was a promise that changed his life forever. He didn't care how long it would take. He didn't care how hard it would be. He didn't care how many times he would fail again. He was going to learn English, not just try, not maybe, not a little bit. He would learn it so well that no one could ever ignore him again. And he started that very night. Not the next week, not tomorrow. He started right then. At 1:32 in the morning, he opened the drawer beside his bed. He took out an old notebook and a pen, and he wrote one sentence at the top of the first page. It said, "I speak English fluently. I just don't know it yet." He didn't even know if that sentence was grammatically correct, but he didn't care. It felt true. It felt powerful. It felt like the beginning of something new. He created a system. It was not based on phone apps or expensive courses or fancy schools. It was based on pure hunger, pure discipline, and real actions. Here is exactly what he did. Step by step, day by day. Step 1. He started with his mouth, not his ears. Most people begin by listening or reading, but not Ryan. He had a mirror in his room. It was tall, but it was cracked in one corner. He stood in front of it at 200 a.m. and said, "Hello, my name is Ryan. I am learning English." It felt strange. It felt robotic and unnatural, but he repeated it 10 times, and he did it again the next day, and the next day every single morning and every single night. Then he moved to other simple sentences. Today I woke up early. I will go to the store. I am not afraid anymore. Each sentence was simple, but it forced his mouth to get used to the sounds of English. He wasn't just learning English. He was becoming a speaker. Step 2. He created a survival English wall. He took pieces of paper and taped them all over one wall in his room. On one paper, he wrote, "How to order food in English." Below it, he wrote sentences like, "I'd like a sandwich, please," and "Can I get a coffee with milk?" and "Do you accept card?" On another paper, he wrote, "How to answer the phone in English." Under that, he wrote, "Good morning. This is Ryan speaking. How may I help you today?" And "One moment, please." He added a new piece of paper with a new topic every 3 days. Soon his entire wall was covered in these notes. He didn't need a classroom. His wall became his teacher. Step 3. The 1-1-1 method. This was his secret weapon. It was a method he still uses today. 1 hour, 1 topic, 1 result. Every single day. For example, on day 1, his topic was talking about yourself. He spent 1 hour watching YouTube videos about self-introductions. He wrote down 5 key sentences. He memorized them. He practiced them 10 times in the mirror. Then he recorded himself on his phone speaking those 5 lines. At the end of the hour, he didn't just study. He had a result. He could now introduce himself a little better than yesterday. He did this every single day. Day 2, asking for directions. Day 3, at the grocery store. Day 4, describing my job. Day 5, talking about my family. Day 6, how to give your opinion. Day 7, small talk with strangers. And he just kept going. Step 4. He built his English identity. He started writing everything in English. His to-do lists were in English. His dreams were in English. His private thoughts were in English. He even gave himself a rule. From now on, Ryan only thinks in English. He made mistakes, so many mistakes, but he wrote every single day. Today, I feel lonely, but I keep going. My dream is to speak in front of people one day. I am scared, but proud. I am learning. He wrote with broken grammar. He used Google Translate sometimes, but he kept writing. One day he wrote, "I believe in myself. I believe in my voice." And when he read that sentence out loud, he cried because for the first time he really did. He didn't have money for English classes, but he had imagination. He turned his small apartment into an English-speaking country. He changed his phone's language setting to English. He renamed every item in his kitchen with little sticky notes. He didn't care if he was alone. He treated every day like living with English was normal, because if you don't live in an English country, you must build one for yourself. Step 5 was recording his voice every day. This was painful. He hated the sound of his own voice. He hated his pronunciation. But he forced himself to do it. Every night before bed, he would sit on the floor, open the voice recorder app on his phone, and say, "Today I learned." Then he would talk for 3 minutes about anything he had practiced that day. It felt very weird at first. But on day 9, he listened to his recording from day 1, and he smiled. He smiled because he could hear progress. Step 6. He stopped apologizing for his English. This was the biggest change in his mindset. At first, he used to always say things like, "I'm sorry for my English," or "My English is not good," or "I can't speak well." But then one day, he looked in the mirror and said to himself, "Stop saying sorry. You are learning. You are trying. That's not a weakness. That's courage." From that day on, whenever he spoke to anyone, he smiled. He spoke slowly, and he did not apologize for his mistakes. Because making mistakes is not shameful. Staying silent because of fear, that's what keeps you stuck. On February 9, 2019, exactly 26 days after the failed interview, he applied for another job at another company. This time, it was a company called Allied Contact Solutions, a small firm that handled inbound customer calls. He walked into the interview with confidence. He spoke slowly. He used short, clear sentences. He smiled. And guess what? They hired him on the spot. $15 per hour, 40 hours per week with a weekly payment. It was his first job in English. He remembered standing outside the building afterward, just looking up at the sky with tears in his eyes. He wasn't crying because he got the job. He was crying because he kept his promise to himself. When Ryan walked into the office of Allied Contact Solutions on his first day, it felt like walking into a different universe. The air was cold from the hum of air conditioners, and people spoke with confident laughter and smooth English. Everyone seemed to belong there, except for him. His palms were sweaty. His black trousers felt too tight, and his tie was slightly crooked. He carried a blue folder with his appointment letter inside, holding it like it was a holy book. He sat down at the front desk, waiting for someone to call his name. His new name tag read, Ryan, in bold black letters. Just Ryan. No one there knew about the storm that was happening inside him. He was assigned to a small cubicle. It had a desktop computer, a headset, and a piece of paper taped to the monitor. The paper said, "Talk slow, smile be kind." That was the company's motto. He must have read it 100 times that day. At 11:42 a.m., he got his first real customer call. "Hello, thank you for calling Allied Contact Solutions. This is Ryan speaking. How may I help you today?" he said, all in one breath. His voice shook like a piece of paper in the wind. The caller was a woman from New Jersey. She spoke fast, too fast. She was angry about something. Ryan couldn't understand half of what she was saying. He froze. "Can you repeat again, ma'am?" he asked. She repeated her problem, still angry, still fast. He still didn't get it. He apologized. Then he pressed the mute button on his phone. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "You are learning. Breathe." He took a deep breath, unmuted the call, and said, "Ma'am, thank you for your patience. Let me help you right now." He solved her issue after 9 long minutes, but his hands were trembling the whole time. When the call finally ended, he put the headset down on the desk and almost cried. Not because it was hard, but because he didn't give up. He stayed. He faced his fear. He finished the call. For the first 2 weeks, he made many mistakes. He would sometimes say he instead of she. He pronounced the word receipt as recip. He would say, "I am agree," instead of "I agree." Some of his teammates laughed sometimes, but not in a cruel way. They actually liked him because he tried so hard. He always smiled. He greeted everyone with, "Good morning. How are you today?" He stayed late after work. He cleaned his desk. He thanked people for their help, and he helped others whenever he could. One girl, Jessica, from the next cubicle once said to him, "You know, Ryan, your English isn't perfect, but your attitude is." Those words stayed with him. He built a powerful routine for himself after work. There were no parties, no distractions. He was on a mission. He made a plan called the Real Fluency System. Here is what he did every single day after work. First, the after-work reflection. Every day from 6:30 p.m. to 7:00 p.m., he would walk home and talk to himself in English out loud. Today, I handled 32 calls. I learned how to say, "Could you please spell that for me?" I made a mistake, but I said sorry politely. He would record this on his phone every day. He called it his Daily English Diary. Next, vocabulary building from 7:15 p.m. to 8:00 p.m. He didn't just read words, he collected them. He created a notebook with 4 columns: word, meaning in easy English example sentence, and my own sentence. For example, word apologize, meaning to say sorry. Example, I apologize for the delay. My sentence, I apologize when I make a mistake at work. Every night, he learned just 5 new words. Not 50, just 5. But he used them in his own sentences. He spoke them out loud. He owned them. Then pronunciation practice from 8:15 p.m. to 9:00 p.m. He opened YouTube and searched for pronunciation videos. He would pause the video after every word and repeat it 3 times. Comfortable. Entrepreneur. Schedule. He practiced tongue twisters too. She sells seashells by the seashore. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. He laughed at himself. He failed. He tried again. Slowly his tongue started to dance with the sounds of English. Finally, real-life English simulations from 9:15 p.m. to 10:00 p.m. He acted like he was in real situations. He would practice ordering food. "Hi, can I get a chicken sandwich, please? No onions, thanks." He would pretend he was talking to HR. "Excuse me, I have a question about my salary slip." He practiced small talk. "How was your weekend?" "Oh, really? That sounds fun." He would stand in front of the mirror and practice like an actor. And every Sunday, he did a weekly public speaking challenge. He recorded a 3-minute speech on a topic. Week 1. Why I want to improve my English. Week 2. My biggest fear. Week 3. How I stay motivated. Week 4. One thing I want to change about myself. He shared these short videos in a Facebook group for English learners. Some people ignored them, and some people laughed. But many people supported him, and he grew more confident. His English mindset started to shift. He stopped using the word perfect. He changed it to progress. He told himself every day, fluency is a journey, not a test. You don't need fancy words. You need real ones. Speak, fail, learn, repeat. He started to celebrate every small win. If he understood a fast sentence on a call, that was a victory. If he made a new friend at work, that was a victory. If he stayed calm during a difficult call with a customer, that was a victory. He remembered one day very clearly. His supervisor, a man named Steve, came to his desk. He said, "Ryan, can you take this client escalation?" "The guy is furious, but I think you can calm him down." Steve trusted him. Ryan took the call. The man on the phone was loud and had a strong accent, but Ryan stayed calm. He said, "Sir, I understand. Let's work through this together." He listened patiently. He apologized for the problem. He offered a solution. After 14 minutes, the man said, "You know what? Thanks, Ryan. You're the first person who actually listened to me." When Ryan hung up the phone, his teammates clapped for him, not because his English was perfect, but because he had become someone they could count on. In that moment, Ryan thought, maybe I can become fluent. Maybe I can even help others too. At work, more and more people started noticing him. His supervisor said, "Ryan, your calls have become so much smoother. Great job." A senior teammate told him, "You speak like someone who's lived abroad." That evening, he didn't just smile. He went home, looked into his cracked mirror, and for the very first time, he said in English, "I am proud of you." He knew he was doing okay, but he wanted more. He didn't want to just answer phone calls for the rest of his life. He wanted to give speeches, to have deep conversations, to write stories, and maybe even teach English to other people who felt lost just like he once did. So he created a new system for himself. He called it Deep Fluency Immersion. It wasn't just about reading books or watching videos. It was a full lifestyle system. Let me explain each part in detail. First was the language zones method. Every room in his apartment had one purpose. He divided his small apartment into different zones. The kitchen was the vocabulary zone. He stuck small paper notes on every item: salt, spoon, stove, cupboard, frying pan. Every time he cooked, he said the names of the objects aloud. "I'm turning on the stove now. I'm adding 2 spoons of sugar. The kettle is hot." He described all of his actions in English. His bedroom was the listening and thinking zone. He started listening to English audiobooks before he went to sleep. He also made a new rule for himself: no thinking in his native language before sleep. He would lie in bed and think things like, "Tomorrow I will ask my boss about the new customer report. I hope the weather is cool. Maybe I'll wear my blue shirt." At first it was very hard, but day by day his thoughts became faster and more natural in English. The bathroom became his speaking practice zone. He printed out 10 questions and stuck them on the mirror. Questions like, "How was your day?" and "What are your future goals?" Every morning while brushing his teeth, he answered those questions out loud. He didn't care how silly he looked. It was his personal training ground. Next was the 1-hour mirror challenge. Once a week on Sundays, he did something very powerful. He stood in front of his mirror and spoke for 1 full hour. There was no script, no preparation. He just picked a topic, for example, my childhood memories, or why I want to be successful, and he spoke for as long as he could. At first, he could only manage about 5 minutes before he ran out of words. But he didn't give up. After a month, he was speaking for 20 minutes straight. After 2 months, 40 minutes. By the end of the 3rd month, he could speak fluently for 1 hour without stopping. He recorded himself, listened back to it, corrected his mistakes, and did it again the next week. This challenge built his fluency confidence and clarity like nothing else. He also had his power source wall, which was now filled with English expressions and idioms. Phrases like break the ice, which means to start a conversation, or once in a blue moon, for something that happens rarely, or spill the beans, which means to tell a secret. His weekly goals were on the wall too. Learn 10 new phrasal verbs. Give feedback in English at the team meeting. Call my friend and speak only in English for 30 minutes. Every day, he stood in front of that wall and repeated things out loud. It wasn't just a wall. It became his source of power. One day, his team leader walked up to his desk and said, "Ryan, you've come a long way. Would you like to train our new batch of employees?" Ryan's heart stopped for a second. Me, he thought. The same guy who once cried after he bears customical. He said, yes. That weekend he sat down and prepared everything. He wrote down examples, common customer phrases, and ideas for role-play activities. On Monday, he stood in front of 20 new employees and delivered his first training session. He wasn't perfect. He made a few mistakes, but people smiled. They listened. They nodded. After the session, a young girl came to him and said, "Thank you, I was so nervous before, but you made me feel like I can do this." That night, Ryan cried again, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of pride. 1 year later, he was invited to speak at an event in his city called English Rising Stars. There were 400 people in the audience. He walked on stage wearing a simple white shirt and black jeans. He looked at the crowd, smiled, and took a deep breath. Then he said, 3 years ago, I was afraid to say my own name on a phone call. Today, I am standing here, not because I'm special, but because I didn't stop. I believe that fluency is not born. It's built brick by brick, word by word, mistake by mistake. People clapped. Some people in the audience even cried. When the event ended, a young boy ran up to him and hugged him tightly. The boy whispered, "You told my story. Thank you." After that day on the stage, Ryan wasn't the same man anymore. His shoulders were straighter. His walk was more confident. His voice had a calm strength that made people want to listen. The boy who once whispered English words in his bathroom was now training hundreds of people, helping strangers believe in themselves, and building a beautiful life step by step. He didn't live in that small shared room anymore. He moved into a bright 1-bedroom apartment with wooden floors, white curtains, a bookshelf full of English novels, and a little balcony filled with plants that he watered every morning. And yes, there was still a mirror on the wall. But this time, when he looked into it, he didn't see a scared beginner. He saw a leader. As his English improved, so did his relationships. He called his mother every evening and spoke to her in both his native language and in simple English. Slowly, she started to pick up some words. She started saying, "Good night, son," and "I am proud of you." That one sentence from her was worth more than any salary. His younger sister, who once used to tease him about his English, now asked him for help with her own English interviews. She told him, "Brother, you're my role model." But the most surprising moment came on a rainy Friday evening. Ryan was attending a professional training event. During the lunch break, a girl with a soft smile and curious eyes came up to him. She said, "Hi, I've been watching your sessions. You speak beautifully." Her name was Nina. She was 26 years old, a graphic designer who had also struggled with English in the past. That first conversation was short, but it felt special. Over the next few months, they talked more, not just about work, but about their childhoods, their fears, their dreams, their favorite foods, and their goals for the future. Ryan told her, "One day I want to buy a Mercedes, not just to show off, but to remind myself how far I've come." Nina smiled and replied, "Then I'll sit beside you and we'll go for a long drive." And just like that, Ryan found love not just with a person, but with a life he once thought he could never have. By now, Ryan was no longer working as just a call center employee. Because of his powerful English communication, his emotional intelligence, and his leadership skills, he was promoted to training manager and later to communications coach for new hires across 3 different cities. His monthly salary was now $5,000 per month. He paid for his sister's college education. He renovated his parents' old kitchen. And he started saving for something big. 2 years later, on his 30th birthday, Ryan walked into a car showroom. He had been dreaming of this moment for 8 years. He placed his hand on the shiny metal of a car, a Mercedes-Benz G-Class, also known as a G-Wagon, and he whispered, "We made it." When he drove it out of the showroom, his eyes were wet with tears. Not because of the price of the car, but because every time he looked at it, he remembered his broken pronunciation. His first failed interview, his bathroom speaking sessions, his mother's quiet prayers, and his own unshakable belief in himself. In the years that followed, Ryan became not just a coach, but a life guide. He believed that learning English was not just about speaking. It was about healing, becoming brave, and believing that you are enough. Here are his top 10 life-changing lessons that he shared with every student. 1. English is not hard. It's just unfamiliar. Get familiar with it. He would say, speak with yourself. Think in English. Don't study it like a subject. Live it like a language. 2. Fluency is not fast speaking. It is clear, confident speaking. Slow down. Pause and be calm. A powerful speaker speaks with their heart, not just with their words. 3. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress. He reminded everyone that perfection is a trap. But progress, that is a victory. 4. Learn English the way babies learn. See, hear, and speak daily. No grammar books at first. Just listen, repeat, and use the language just like children do. Use the mirror method daily. Speak to yourself every day. Even just 5 minutes a day in front of a mirror can change your confidence. 6. Use the describe the action method. Every time you do something, describe it in English. I am opening the window. I am brushing my hair. I am feeling happy. 7. Make a word notebook. Carry it with you everywhere. Write down 5 new words every day. Use each word in 3 different sentences that relate to your own life. 8. Watch movies with subtitles first, then watch them again without subtitles. He told his students, first understand, then feel, then speak like them. 9. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Be afraid to stay the same. Every mistake is a brick. Keep building your house of English. 10. Teach one person what you learn. When you teach, you remember better, and you give someone else a reason to believe. At age 32, Ryan wasn't just a fluent speaker. He was a leader. He was a son who fulfilled his mother's dream, a brother who inspired his sister, a partner who supported the one he loved, a man who turned his pain into power, and a human who never ever gave up. And every evening after dinner, he still walked out to his balcony, looked up at the stars, and said quietly in English, "Thank you, Ryan. You didn't give up. You made your life beautiful, one word at a time." You may feel lost right now. You may feel like English is too hard, or that you're too late to start, or that your dreams are too far away. But Ryan's story proves that if you give just 1 hour every day to English and you never give up, your life will change forever. Because English is not just a language, it is a doorway to confidence, to freedom, to power, to love, to pride, and to peace. You just have to be brave enough to open it. Now it's your turn. Stand up. Go to your mirror and begin. Say, "I can, I will, I must, I am learning English, and I will never stop." If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with someone who needs some motivation today. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for listening.